How bad is American economy? On March 10, 2023, Silicon Valley Bank, or SVB for short, headquartered in Silicon Valley, collapsed within a short time. SVB was relatively quite large in their size and operation, with assets worth $212 billion as of the last quarter of 2022, with operations all around the world. The sudden collapse caused serious shock waves in the financial markets and triggered speculation of contagion risks. The spillover effect of SVB's failure to other banks and the broader business and financial world is what we call as contagion risks. To add to these speculative fears, there were also a couple of more bank failures, including Silvergate Bank, which seemed to have lost a ton of money in bad crypto investments. Apart from this, there are several smaller banks that seem to be at great risk of a rundown on their deposits. There is definitely an increased level of anxiety from depositors to pull out their money or transfer it to larger banks, which seem to have a sense of stability. There are several other indicators in the American economy that point to a pretty bleak picture. Their central bank, namely, the Federal Reserve, is fighting inflation for almost 2 years, with a steady increase in interest rates. Though raising of the interest rate seems to have an impact on the inflation, mainly on the wages, it also increases the cost of borrowing for companies, which in turn affects the profit margin of small, medium, and large companies. When the companies lose their profit, they end up looking for cost-cutting measures, and one of the most important costs is the cost of the salaries paid to their employees. So, they cut their workforce. This trend has already been going on in the US for the past few months. Just in the information technology sector alone, more than 200,000 workers have been laid off, from many large and medium-sized companies, like Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, etc. Apart from such direct layoffs, there is a trickle-down effect that comes to affect the service and hospitality industries that depend on these employees who are their customers or clients. This can have a domino effect affecting a large group of industries. Hence, the unemployment can rise unless there is a quick turnaround in the inflation and interest rates. There is another 800-pound gorilla that's hiding too. And that's the Russia-Ukraine war. The cost of energy and food has increased drastically in Europe and to a lesser degree in the US as well. Russia and Ukraine have been the two major sources of food to the world, apart from energy. With strong sanctions against Russia, Europe, in particular, and the Western nations in general, have all seemed to have a self-inflicted wound to their economy. Any economic slowdown in Europe can easily affect the US exports. Also, the US has directly committed to spending tens of billions into what looks like a never-ending war in Ukraine. With hostilities already raging on between the US and China, this added conflict that the US seems to be obsessed in Ukraine can prove to be a costly mistake. If you wonder if the Biden administration is just sleeping on the wheels, it'll be an unfair mischaracterization. However, the tools that are normally available to remedy the situation are not what's best suited to handle this. We'll explain what we mean by that. The US government has coordinated with the Federal Reserve and has tried to soften the blows of the banking collapses by providing enough liquidity to the banks. So, any bank that may need cash to keep their operations running smoothly can now have access to these funds at relatively lower interest rates. Though it has temporarily calmed the markets, it has also created additional money supply flow into the system. This has worked directly opposite to what the US Federal Reserve has been trying to do for the past 2 years by tightening the money supply and thereby decrease the inflation. We all know that inflation is a direct result of increased money supply, and the whole reason why the US central bank raised the interest rates is to tighten the money supply and thereby the inflation. Now, by saving the banks with providing plenty of liquidity, it has worked against its stated goals. There are many top economists, including Nouriel Roubini, have issued predictions that the US economy is heading towards a recession and possibly big trouble in the months ahead. The world is certainly heading towards a very uncertain period, and a major downturn in the US economy cannot be ruled out. Thanks for watching.